Honored custos, honored opponents, dear assembly, both present and online. In my artistic practice, I have found myself on two sides of a fence. The word music has been both suitable and unsuitable, often simultaneously. I am certainly not the first to have this problem. For example, the composer Mauricio Kagel dreamt of what he called music for all senses. But his work has never been called that. Usually it's been called instrumental theater or just theater. In my own practice, I see three kinds of hybridity. One, playing together with non-musical aspects of the environment, which I would call a hybrid situation or a hybrid place. And two, a performer who plays instruments or sings, but also does other things, which I would call a hybrid performer. And three, sculpture that can be used as an instrument. I would call that a hybrid object. Such hybridity is not a problem in practice. One simply does it. Practical challenges take practical solutions. But when I tried to find efficient terminology to address such hybridity, I located a serious problem in language instead. The concept of music turned out to be the obstacle. Theory could not grasp practice. Why? Because there is no definition of music that really works. I do not have time to go through a variety of attempted definitions of music, but let's take a well-known example for one. The composer Edgar Varese said that music is organized sound. But the problem with that is, of course, that it includes almost anything imaginable. Speaking, walking, driving a bus, eating, clapping hands, audience applause, not to mention whale song or bird song. In fact, to exclude anything from this definition of music, it would have to be totally silent or totally unorganized, or both. The latter is fairly difficult to find. Ever since chaos theory and emergence, it has been problematic to prove that a given thing is not organized in some way. Improvisation and chance operations have long been used by composers. All definitions of music fail in one way or another. I believe Luciano Berio, the composer, and Jean-Jacques Nattiez, semiotician and musicologist, have already exposed the truth in the late 80s and early 90s. Berio said, "Music is everything that one listens to with the intention of listening to music." And many people got angry at Berio for saying that. And Nattiez wrote in 1990, "Music is whatever people choose to recognize as such." It is what we say it is. Now, that sounds a lot like dogma, a principle or a set of principles laid down by an authority as incontrovertibly true. Dogma is not up for grabs. An opinion does not affect it, only the word of the authority in question. In this way, dogma is, in a way, immune to perception. The authority that gave the dogma would be questioned if something other than said authority could affect the statement. The late Finnish artist Kimmo Kaivanto made a sharp comment with his bronze sculpture, Dogmaatikko, the dogmatist. The dogmatist only sees what he says. And for copyright reasons, we don't show this picture on the video stream, but people here can see it. And the bronze sculpture is a man's head with a speech bubble in front of his eyes. So he only sees what he says. Everything is like he says it is. He is blind to everything outside the speech bubble. I'd like to share a brief example of how exposing dogmatism in our thinking could be beneficial. It was possible to play soloistically on the bass guitar before Jaco Pastorius came along. He wasn't even the first bassist to take the frets off. Neither did he invent the bass guitar solo. What he did was that he showed how the bass guitar had been confined to a particular role, not because of the limitations of the instrument, but because of limitations in the current thinking concerning the instrument. He exposed the dogma that had been limiting the use of the bass guitar. And the dogma, of course, is something like this. The bass guitar was supposed to be played in a certain way. It's not the instrument for a star soloist. But Pastorius put on display the non-dogmatic truth. The bass guitar can be used in a variety of ways. Supportive, soloist, anything in between. This is a practical matter. There are limits. Highest note, lowest note, the number of strings. But practical limits do not stifle creativity, they encourage it. When it comes to the bass guitar, the dogma concerned the playing, not so much the words used. But language itself can have a dogmatic limitation. Such is the case with the word music. It is both hopelessly bland because it means whatever, and too rigid because it doesn't mean anything else, just itself. Arguing over words can be endless and equally useless. I do not wish to do that. My motivation is this. As an artistic researcher, I need language for practice. As an artistic researcher, I found myself in need for language, for discourse that would be unhindered by the useless dogmatism of the word music. Logically, we have three options. One, which is our current situation in Western culture, calling some things music, but some not. This option, as I explained, is not helpful explaining regarding artistic practice that happens on both sides of the conceptual fence in these hybrid situations. And also, it is entirely a matter of power. What music is depends completely on whose definition has the most influence. And this varies from one social sphere to the next. Option two, everything is called music. This is actually the Pythagorean ancient Greek option. But since music is a dogma, this option is actually rather horrible. It is not only absurd, it is also totally pointless. If everything is dogma, there is a single opinion that overrules everything. We could call this kind of Hellenist totalitarianism. This is what Richard Wagner dreamed of in the artwork of the future. This is what Antiochus IV tried to impose, but the Maccabean revolt successfully resisted. So in my dissertation, I present a third option, calling nothing music. Calling nothing music does not mean forbidding violins or blowing up opera houses. This is a matter that concerns language. How would it be if we didn't call violin playing music? If we didn't call the song on our phone music? How would such a change affect our conversation? Perhaps even culture and society as a consequence. I propose that such a change would actually be beneficial. Our discourse would be better suited to discuss practice. My own artistic practice is only a niche example of this. When knowledge is found through artistic practice, the discourse concerning this knowledge needs to be similarly practice-derived. In other words, abstract talk cannot really grasp practical things. The etymology of the word art is fascinating. Behind the widely known Latin root word, ars, work of art, practical skill, a business, craft, there is a Proto-Indo-European root, ar, arti, meaning to fit together. Proto-Indo-European is not a real language, it's a reconstructed language, thought to be the common root of the languages of the Indo-European language family. Indo-European languages include English, Spanish, Hindi, Persian. Almost half of the world's population speaks an Indo-European language today. So this fascinating root suggests the idea that a work of art is something that's fitted together. For example, for a painter, fitting together visual forms and colors, for a writer, fitting together words, a composition, an arrangement of pre-existing things brought together. Is not our society a fitting together of a larger scale? Could it be that how we think about togetherness in the arts reveals how we think about togetherness on a larger scale? Togetherness within an artwork, togetherness in society, these are connected to one another. In the artistic component of my dissertation, an essay film called Törenlahti, a parable in landscape, there are scenes where I asked some instrumentalists to improvise in relation to their environment. And here is a short clip. What you just saw was Dr. Simo Hostikka, Associate Professor of Fire Safety Engineering at Aalto University, playing a snare drum with trains, and Sibelius Academy graduate Master of Music Julia Pölönen playing a kantele with street noise. If creative activity can connect with things we probably call non-creative in this way, maybe the border between them is more or less artificial. And if we admit that everyone is creative in some way, to some extent, it follows that how we think of creativity is how we understand the togetherness of humankind. If our language concerning this togetherness is dogmatic, we run the risk of building a dogmatic totality, an oppressive system, remembering the conflict between Antiochus IV and the Maccabees. Forceful assimilation versus a distinct identity. So now more than ever, we need to find new language to better understand the togetherness of different forms of creative expression. Togetherness that is not dogmatic, not oppressive assimilation, and neither a compromise, because a compromise would not be stable. There must be room to disagree, to be distinct. I believe the problem with the concept of music is its abstractness. The expression laws of physics presents the idea that first there is a law, and then there is a nature that obeys this law. Naturally, this is backwards. Gravity was first, Isaac Newton afterwards. The atom preceded atomic models by Niels Bohr or by Heisenberg and Schrödinger. Hence the word model. Abstraction is a tool of description, not a preceding principle. Music is an extremely abstract word, so much so that it fails to describe reality. It comes from a static view of the universe, which we know is not static, but moving very fast. Why should we rely on an abstraction that fails to describe the world? A static universe is hopeless because there's no change. This is why escapism is so prevalent in what I call the musical worldview. We know that the universe is not static, it's expanding. Why should arts and culture remain in antiquity while even the natural sciences have long abandoned such antiquitous models? It is time we updated our discourse to better understand our practices. It is high time to seek a discourse that can understand togetherness without falling again into a dogmatic pit. This is where I see the unique significance of artistic research. This past summer, 10 different art education and research organizations published the Vienna Declaration on Artistic Research, wherein they say, through topics and problems stemming from and relevant to artistic practice, artistic research also addresses key issues of a broader cultural, social, and economic significance. Artistic research could reveal the areas where theoretical discourse has abstracted itself, that is, literally withdrawn from the things it is supposed to concern. So, to conclude with a summary, in my research, I have shown that there is artistic practice that challenges the usefulness of the word and concept music, and that there have been languages that have no corresponding words or concepts. Pre-colonial languages in Africa, ancient Hebrew, probably Armenian, maybe Old Finnish, could be more. So therefore, if musicless language has been done before, it can be done again. I believe this would be highly beneficial. Connections between forms of creative expression would be refreshed in our thinking, and togetherness between them can be better understood in ways that avoid a dogmatic oppression of some kind. There is a very important condition to this, of course. Going to a musicless language can only be voluntary. The word music cannot be forbidden. Hence, using the word option for this. And as a consequence of this voluntariness, it will be diverse, in process, in constant need of translation and adjustment, contrasting starkly with the one-sided imposition of dogma. Therefore, this is not a utopia. Utopianism, as Richard Taruskin has pointed out, would appear to always entail a body count. A musicless mindset is not a utopian ideal. It is only an improvement, a step towards a better world. Honored opponents, I now call upon you to present your critical comments on my doctorate.